You are listening to Meet the Thriller Author, the podcast where I interview writers of mysteries, thrillers, and suspense novels. I'm your host, Alan Peterson, and this is episode number 64. In this episode of the podcast, I'm going to be interviewing David Banner, who lives in the coastal southeast. He is the author of the Dangerous Waters thriller series, which is set in the Gulf Coast of Florida. His first 3 books in that series are out now, and they're doing very well on Amazon. And he hopes to continue writing Florida-based adventure books while exploring his ever-increasing love of the water. So I'll be talking to David about his new series, how he came about the idea for writing these books, and his thoughts on them doing so well right out of the gate, and a whole bunch more. So stay tuned for this episode coming up here in just a moment. Quick reminder to please rate and review this podcast on iTunes, on Stitcher, or Google Play, wherever you listen to your podcast. Your reviews, your rating helps me get the word out about this podcast, and so your support is much appreciated. Okay, so here is episode number 64. Hey everybody, this is Alan Peterson with Meet the Thriller Author, and for this episode of the podcast, I am talking with David Banner on Skype. How are you doing, David?
Good. How about you, man?
I am doing great. Thanks for being on the podcast. Can you tell the readers a little bit about yourself?
Always lived kind of in the coastal southeast part of the United States, and I've always just kind of loved like the water and the beach, and lived about an hour and a half, 2 hours from there most of my life. And then I always loved to read, and I was just reading a lot lately, and I got reading like Donnelly McKenna's books and Wayne Stennett's books, and the more I got reading it, the more I'm like, I want to write one. I just want to write one. So then I did, and that's how I kind of ended up at this point.
Oh yeah, that's cool. Yeah, those are those Florida coastal ones of books that seem to be so popular with the readers.
Yeah, it's I think it's just because it's kind of an escapism. You know, people just so many people are so far from a beach or a coast or water, and I think it's just when you think of a vacation, that's what you think of, and you read to escape. So I think that's why people just kind of gravitate toward that. And
so your series is a Dangerous Waters thriller series. Can you tell us about that one?
Sure. It's so it's based off it's mainly focused on these 2 brothers. The first one being Brandon Waters, and when it starts off, their parents have disappeared a long time ago. When they were kids, they just woke up one day and their parents were gone, and so the older brother Brandon had to sort of raise his younger brother Micah. And then in the first book, they get this weird visit from this person who had been handling their estate, telling them that they've inherited a house on Anna Maria Island, and through just kind of this random series of events, the brother gets fingered for a murder that Brandon knows he couldn't have committed. So then he kind of sets off on this quest to clear his brother, and in the meantime gets his self fingered for another murder. And then so he's got to kind of handle that and clear both their names at the same time while trying not to die.
And is his background, is he like a cop or?
No, I was gonna maybe start him off as being a PI or a police officer or something, but then I thought I would rather him not, because I would rather him go into it not knowing. His parents were these very famous private investigators in the state of Florida when they disappeared, so he kind of vowed that he would never get into that business. And then, but he had kind of this auxiliary knowledge of it from everything he had heard from them and learned from them. And then whenever his brother got thrown in jail for that murder, he had to kind of get himself into that world he swore he never would.
Yeah, so that's kind of cool. So it's kind of like kind of different from most of those type of books.
Yeah.
Where they're not a professional cop or something.
No, he's not at all. He kind of starts out with very little idea as to what he's actually doing, and he kind of learns along the way. He gets help from kind of a set of interesting characters. A girl named Hope, who grew up kind of in this weird way, kind of that he did, and he manages to do it. But it's not easy.
So now for those series, for the series, the location is such a big part of the book. Is that the same for your series? And is that a real island, or is it?
Oh yeah, no. Anna Maria Island is when the first book starts. They're in Miami, but they quickly leave there, and because the house he inherits is in Anna Maria Island. Anna Maria Island is it's down on the Gulf side. It's down kind of below Appalachia, where Don Lee McKenna's books are set, and it's a real island. It's very kind of old school. There are a few resorts there, but not a lot. And I had heard about it years ago on an episode of, I think maybe like City Confidential or something. And there was a lady there who had owned a hotel and she was murdered. And that story always kind of stuck with me. And then I've never actually been to Anna Maria Island. I just kind of researched it a lot. And I will be going later this year now that I've written these. But I just started there because I just loved the look of it.
And so right now you have 2 books out, and you have a third one coming out?
Yeah, it should be out sometime this week.
Oh, so can you tell us a little bit about the third book? Like, what's the title? And
the third book is called Dead on the Docks. It takes place in St. Augustine, Florida. Actually, it starts off he's in his home of Anna Maria, and in the second book, he and his brother opened a bar on that island. And his brother sort of entered into a relationship with Hope, the girl from the first book that he had met, and who has this kind of connection to his past and his family that he didn't know about. And the brother and her have kind of started a relationship, so they all stay behind, and he gets a call and goes up to St. Augustine, and it turns out the call was a trick. It's from his former best friend, who he hasn't seen in years, and the friend's father has been murdered, and his new wife has been fingered for the crime, but his friend is sure that she didn't commit it, and he needs his help to kind of clear her. And there's another element that's this sort of underground fighting ring that's been going on by these really wealthy people. There's a lot of wealth up that way from a long time ago, whenever it was founded by like the Spanish conquistadors, and it's a lot of old like Spanish style family and wealth that's up that way, and I kind of play into that.
And so now I've been seeing your books. You're very prolific with these books. What's your writing process like? Did you get the idea and you just start writing them, or did you like outline them and plot them all out?
I don't plot them too heavily because I have trouble sticking to it when I plot it super heavily like that. So what I do is I usually just write like 6 points, a beginning, an end, and then a few in between, and I'll lay those out. And then the desktop of my computer ends up being cluttered with like 1,000 sticky notes of all these things I'm gonna incorporate, and I kind of work my way through those as I go. But it doesn't, even with all that, it doesn't stop me from having to go back and change things or add things or remove things. And so it's a process, but I enjoy it very much.
Yeah, that's cool. The stickies, yeah, I'm amazed at people. So people like all like super high tech with all these things, and then a lot of people do like longhand or stickies. It's pretty cool to see everyone does it differently. It's whatever works for the writer.
Yeah, a lot of people use like Scrivener and all these apps with all this elements and stuff, and I don't. I just literally just 1,000 sticky notes.
And you use that Word to write to do the actual writing?
Yeah, I use Word and nothing else actually, Just Word, and I do the covers myself because I have just a very limited Photoshop knowledge. So
oh wow, you do your covers yourself. Those are really nice covers. I'm impressed.
Thank you, I appreciate that.
That is cool too. You save a lot of money on the covers.
Yeah, I just figured I'd do them myself because I could. So why not?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Well, yeah, when they turn out like that, yeah. So how many more books are you going to have out in the series, or is it going to continue on?
Oh yeah, it will continue on. I've got about the next 3 planned out right now, and usually once I complete one, try to plan out another one so that I always have like about 3 ahead of myself planned out. And for the moment, it's just going to continue, hopefully for quite a while.
Yeah, because they're selling very well, and it's pretty impressive. Because did you have like a fan base from before, or is it?
No, I just launched them, and the first one kind of took off, and pretty quickly after maybe about 2 weeks, and then the second one, when it was released after everything generated, like the lists and the also bots and everything, it kind of took off too. I had a friend, he writes a series too, Mark Stone, the Coastal Justice series. I had him share it in his newsletter, and that kind of gave me a little bit of an initial boost, but they just kind of took off.
And so you said now you were influenced that you like to read in this genre. So you've always been a fan of reading thrillers and mysteries.
Oh yeah, mysteries and thrillers have always been any kind of mystery and thriller, even like cozy mysteries, like Agatha Christie. Then the newer cozy mysteries, like Agatha Frost, both Agatha, like any of them, just any thriller or mystery has always been what I gravitated toward. And then I just have such a love of the coast and the water that the two of them just that was where I went.
And do you still find time to read now, or are you too busy writing and putting these out?
No, I read still. I kind of think you have to, a little bit. I can't do it as much as I would like to because I'm busy with this, but I still make a point to do it, at least every couple of days to read something.
How do you get your ideas? Are they like based from like news events or?
They're based from news events a little bit. Yeah. Like the first one, like I said, there was a murder on Anna Maria Island that actually happened of a lady named Sabine. I think she was an immigrant from somewhere. She owned a hotel, and she was murdered, and it turned out to be by this guy she was having an affair with, and that's where I kind of pulled a lot from that real life murder to put in the first book, and then the second book, I just research and try to find things that have actually happened kind of near there and pull elements from different parts of them, and then some of it is I just come up with, but I try to incorporate, at least some parts of things that actually happened.
And does any of your personality or traits make it into your characters, like Brendan Waters? Or
yeah, he's not too far off from me, actually. He just kind of, like I said, a lot of the people, the main characters in the genre, a lot of the protagonists are police officers and detectives, and he's just not. He just started out wanting to be left alone and just to not be murdered or go to prison. That was his driving force throughout the entire book. He wasn't trying to serve this big justice in any way. I mean, he kind of is now that he's fallen into it a little bit more, and with every book it goes toward that a little further, but he and I are not too far apart now in terms of personality.
So are these books, I know they're part of a series, but each is it like each story is a standalone? Like everything gets solved in that book?
Yeah, everything is solved in that book with the exception of the overarching mystery of what happened to their parents.
Oh, okay, cool. Mm-hmm.
That he still doesn't know. There was a guy in the first book named Sonny who had some information, but he met an unfortunate end in that book. And so he never got to find out what it was he actually knew. And there are little things along the way in each book, and I will answer that mystery because I already know, and I have it planned out, but not right now.
And what are the challenges that you face when you start to write these stories, like the research, and can you just go a little bit about your process for doing that?
I think the biggest obstacle that probably any author would face would be just sitting in the chair and actually doing it. Mm-hmm. I have a bit of a problem with that. There's always a million things to do, and even though you're just sitting in this very stationary position just typing, the thought of it at times seems exhausting, as I'm sure you know. And so it can be, that's a big obstacle, is just to actually sit down and take the time and actually do it. And then once I cross that hurdle and I actually spend 5 minutes writing, I'm all about it. I'm totally fine. I'll write for hours. But before that, it's just oh my God, it's the thought of it is so daunting.
And do you usually write in the same spot, or do you go to coffee shops, or?
No, I always write sort of in the same spot. Same couple of spots, which would be either on my couch or in my kitchen. I don't like writing in bed. A lot of people write in bed, but the physical position of it irritates me.
Yeah, I could never see that either.
Yeah, I don't understand how people do that, and then you're like sinking into the mattress, and it's just all on level, and I just can't. So I try to do it at a table, and I can do it at the couch. Sometimes I'll just sit on the couch and do it if I'm feeling super lazy. But I always do it in one of those two places.
And when you're writing, when you're like trying to finish a book, do you set like writing goals? Like I want to write X amount of words today, or?
Yeah, I try to never stop in the middle of a chapter. And then I always try to do about 2 chapters like per sitting. And I usually try to sit down and write about twice a day. And a chapter usually ends up, for me anyway, being around 1,500 to 2,000 words.
By the time you published the first one, you already had worked on the second and the third one?
Yeah, by the time the first one was uploaded, actually, after it went to an editor, I had the first one edited twice, actually, for a miscommunication between me and my original editor. But yeah,
I know how that goes.
Yeah, it's there's a lot that goes into it. It's just even small things can make that happen. But by the time the first one was uploaded, I was nearly done with the second one, and now the second one is up, and I am done with the third one. I'm just waiting for it to come back from my copy editor so I can go ahead and get that out there.
And do you have that one on pre-sale, or you don't do that one?
No, I didn't do a pre-order with it because I wasn't sure how long it was going to take him. But I will likely start doing pre-orders soon, because I'm writing them quicker than I can upload them. So I'll have a couple backlog probably, and I will start the pre-orders soon. I would like just, like the things you need, like my mailing list to grow, and just to sort of get a better foothold on it, and then I'll start the pre-orders.
Yeah, because that's pretty amazing, because I was just looking at your first book. You just got published in January of this year, so...
Yeah, it was like January 31st, I think.
Wow.
Second one.
So it's like really taken off like crazy.
Yeah, it's been quick. And then the second one came out, I think, on the 20th of February or something. So it wasn't even a full month. And this one probably won't be a full month either, because I'm supposed to have it sometime this week, and I'll probably just go ahead and put it out there. So it's all sort of quick.
And are you getting messages from readers, and are you starting to get that stuff? Yeah,
a little bit. And from what I hear, most people are enjoying it. I mean, if you look at the rankings anyway, and the sales, it looks like people are. Mm-hmm. You get reviews of people who thought it was going to be something else, and then they didn't like it because, like, a lot of times, like, if you look at Wayne Stennett's books, they're like very slice of life. And they're very slow, and then you look at Donnelly McKenna's, and they're sort of a little bit the same way, but mine are a little bit sort of harder and a little bit more action heavy and fast paced. And I think that some people maybe don't expect that, and then some people like it as a surprise, and then some people don't. They're just like, I thought this was going to be something else, and you're like, well, I don't know what to do about that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, nothing you can do about it, and you can't please everybody. So that's
no, it's impossible.
Yeah. But you seem to be pleasing a lot of people, because your sales ranking, it's very impressive.
Thank you.
Yeah. And so when you start working on this, now that you got something going here, are you finding, I know it's not easy, but are you finding the process easier, or are you still finding like the same challenges from like when you first published your first book?
No, it's getting easier every time. Every chapter gets a little bit. It's when you start anything new, especially this, where you're like putting it out there for people, and you think like, well, I don't want somebody to say anything bad or someone not to enjoy it, and then you can easily just sort of drive yourself crazy trying to go down that road. But the more I sort of write, the less important that becomes. And I'm just like, well, I'm just going to write what I think is good, and it'll go out, and then hopefully it'll sell. And so it becomes less and less of a challenge. And as far as the writing goes, that is the same way. It's over the course of these 3 books that I've written so far, it's been a quicker process to do each one. It took a little bit longer to do the first one than it did the second, and a little bit longer to do the second than it did the third. So it gets a little bit easier each time.
And have you been writing for a long time, even before you started publishing?
A little bit, yeah. I've written things sort of with friends before, and then I've written other things, but it wasn't until recently that with the introduction of self-publishing that you could actually do it. And because before trying to get an agent was like just the most uphill battle. Like, it's so complicated and so difficult and time consuming. And so I would try to do it and then give up and then go again and then stop. But it's with this that it's finally something that people can do and get the work out there and not have to go through those hoops and all that red tape that's just so unnecessary.
And so what keeps you going now when you're writing these?
It's nice to hear the feedback or see the reviews and then see the sales go and see the rankings go high. And it's a good feeling to know that you are putting something out that people are enjoying and that, people like to read and like to visualize as sort of an escape from whatever it is, just boredom or whatever they may be trying, whatever reason people are reading for. But it's nice. It's just a nice feeling, and it's good to know.
Yeah, and it's so interesting about the whole Florida location. I mean, that's got to be something that is probably just as important as even the story then, right? To get that right, and you being from there probably makes it a lot easier than someone's just doing, I'm gonna start writing about that area because it's popular, and then if they're not from there, it's gonna be kind of tough. I would imagine.
Yeah, I spent a lot of time there. I live in the sort of coastal part of South Carolina right now, but I still go there all the time. Mm-hmm. It's not far, and then I go to like Orlando a lot, or Miami, or St. Augustine, or anywhere. But I go down there all the time because it's just for me like a siren song. I can't get past it. I just love the water and the coast. And I hate the cold, and so I just really hate it. And so anytime it even gets a little bit cold, the first thing that pops into my mind is, I wonder what's happening in Key West. And so I'll check the weather, and it's like 78 degrees, and I'm jealous. Because I want to go, so I spend so much time there. But the location is just as big a character as anything else, because you have to talk about like the breeze and the way the heat feels and the trees, and especially like old Florida, the sort of Anna Maria part and the Appalachia part and all these places that kind of have stayed true to the smaller boats, and like the houses along the beach are not these ridiculous mansions that are just, so new. And I love that older Florida that is still evident in some places.
Yes, and I noticed also that Amazon has in the categories of sea adventures. So I didn't realize there's a whole subcategory for sea adventures.
Oh yeah, there's a couple for sea adventures, and it's mostly populated by like Wayne Stinnett, Donley McKenna, Stephen Becker. I'm in there now. Mark Stone is in there. There's a few other people, but it's all sort of most of it is based down on either one of the coasts of Florida. And like I said, I think it's just because of that level of escapism that people are looking for. So much of, so many people are so far from water or a beach or anything that's when you think of vacation, or when you think of free time, or what I want to do with my downtime, or how do I relieve the stress of my day or whatever. That's, I think, where a lot of people's mind heads to.
All right. So and just to recap, then you have the third book is coming out, you said, in March.
Yeah, it should be out either by the end of this week or sometime during next.
Let's see. Let people know about that. Where can people find you, the listeners?
It can just be on my Facebook, or they can email me at davidbannerbooks@gmail.com, or chat with me on Facebook. Either way, I'm always around.
Anything else that you want to tell our listeners before I let you go?
No, just that. Thank you for letting me on, and then everyone else for reading. I appreciate it.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Meet the Thriller Author. I'd like to ask you to please review and rate this podcast over on iTunes. It really helps me get the word out. If you take a few seconds of your time to do that, it would be much appreciated. You can also visit my website at thrillingreads.com/podcast for show notes on this episode, as well as information about the podcast in general. And you can also sign up for my mailing list there. You'll be getting special offers from our guests, as well as information, behind the scenes information on the podcast. And please do visit my author website at alanpeterson.com. I appreciate your support. And so until next episode, I will talk to you then.